This is vitamin D3, the most purchased and consumed vitamin of all time. And this is the sun. There is no individual supplement that is nearly as popular as vitamin D. Vitamin D even edged out the holy multivitamin as the #1 supplement used to combat COVID-19. And what are you doing? What are you doing? The vitamin D market is currently valued around 800 million. How much money are you making? Huh? How much money are you? Vitamin D is known for its immunomodulatory, anti-inflammatory, antiviral, antioxidative properties. It's really good stuff. You need vitamin D, so you should get some. You can get with this, or you can get with that. But if you get with this, you'll be joining in on what has become a revolutionary tale in the vitamin D paradox. And although yes, you can get it through food, eggs, salmon, right? There is nothing like getting it through the sun. It is the most efficient method to get vitamin D. Yet you go to your doctor's office and your levels could be improved and you're prescribed vitamin D supplements. How did we go from that to this? Does this vitamin D do the same thing as the sun's vitamin D? And has anyone noticed the massive push for vitamin D online lately? Like, is this by happenstance or is this devised? My name is Johnny Cole Dixon. You're watching No Lab Coat Required, and here's the story of how the vitamin D supplement beat the sun. When I was a young boy, I thought vitamin D came from Sunny D. And then I got older and learned it actually comes from this pill bottle. Why do I believe this? Why do I believe it to where my brain goes, I need more vitamin D, I'm gonna go take a pill? Check this out. Vitamin D was among some of the least popular tests ordered by doctors around the year 2000. But from 2000 to 2010, there was an 83-fold increase in what Medicare was paying for vitamin D testing. Vitamin B12 is a close second, but goodness gracious, what transpired to where the entire nation all started testing for vitamin D at the same time. You see, vitamin D wasn't always this popular. It's in milk, it's in baby formula, but wait until you hear what else we were putting it in. It was the early 1930s and cod liver oil was commonly used to treat skeletal problems in kids. Rickets, or the deformation of bones that made kids bow-legged, was the most common child disease in the US. We may have not known what it was about the cod liver oil that worked, but eventually some smart chemists extracted an isolate of cod liver oil. It was the working molecule that we eventually went on to call vitamin D. We started promoting baby sun exposure, give that baby a coat of tan, and putting vitamin D in milk to fortify it in the 1930s. Shortly after, the condition of rickets was virtually eradicated in the US. And this is probably where some of that association between milk and strong bones began, as we do know vitamin D to support bone health. But if you want to know why you have that vitamin D sup in your cabinet, you gotta know how America felt to get rid of rickets in the country. Absolute elation. It was a miracle ingredient. Vitamin D found its way onto all types of products. Beer, they were putting them in hot dogs and even custard. But by isolating vitamin D, we solved one problem and introduced another. It was 1924 when the first vitamin D supplement was available for purchase. Advertised for growing children, pregnant women, and delicate men. That's not nice. You know how offended our generation would be if you called them delicate? Okay, I'm probably being a bit harsh when I call this a problem. The advancement of technology to be able to get us to where we can hand select a single nutrient is probably a net positive, but we have to mark this event. America invented vitamin D supplements and then monetized the heck out of them. But looking outside of good old capitalism, what is it about the Americans' relationship with the sun that has driven this reliance on the vitamin D supplement? Real quick, we're gonna dive deep. Let's shout out who this video is brought to you by. All right, it's my favorite time of the year. I'm a Midwestern kid, so I always have a deep appreciation for when the sun is starting to come back out and the weather is warming up. I'm here at the park where a bunch of friends and I play softball. I'm in charge of keeping everyone hydrated because if I don't, then they die. No, they don't die. It's important to keep everyone hydrated because sodium is lost in the beating sun when we sweat. Sodium is elite. I mean, it's in a class of its own. It's the mineral in charge of every nerve impulse in the body. Sodium powers our brain's communication as well as the rest of our nervous system. Losing salt through sweat outside prompted the creation of modern-day sports drinks as we know them. But as we know them, modern-day sports drinks are kind of trash. I mean, they got everything and they mama on the ingredients list, and then they got the nerve to barely supply the sodium we need. And so we've reluctantly replenished with those sports
sports drinks, but time started to shift when LMNT came out a few years ago. LMNT is an electrolyte drink mix with just the minerals you need. That's what electrolytes are, by the way. They're just minerals that dissolve in the body's water and concentrated in two different compartments, the inside of the cell and our bloodstream, going for optimal hydration. LMNT has sodium and potassium and magnesium, key electrolytes getting us to peak hydration. If you plan to spend more time in the sun around this part of the year, do your body a favor and ensure it has the salt it needs to operate. With my code below, you can get a free sample pack with any purchase of LMNT. You'll be able to try out their delicious flavors and see which one is for you. I'm on the grapefruit train right now. An iced glass of grapefruit after a run. Woo. Child, I be needing that. Check out the link in the description to take advantage of the sample pack, whether you've done this with me before or not. Thank you, LMNT, for being a partner of No Lab Coat Required.
What's unique about American culture is its relationship with the sun. There were prominent sun-worshipping cultures that comes to everybody's mind. Ancient Egypt, the Aztec civilization, Inca Empire, Hinduism in India, Shinto in Japan, ancient Greece, ancient Rome, ancient China. Many cultures were much more likely to worship the sun than to fear it. And I don't mean to get religious on y'all. I mean, y'all would know more than me. I just Googled those just now. But now, let's look at America. I'm talking Christopher Columbus's America, Vince Cerf's America, bald eagles, Chatham slavery, and avocado toast. This America. If you want to understand where we are, then we have to understand how our past uniquely situated us to have specific sun challenges. Some years ago, I had a job as a summer camp counselor, very serious job. I was over the rocketry department and I had my own shed. Everybody called me Johnny Rockets. There were only 2 rules at this camp: drink water and apply sunscreen. Every day we'd wake up, have the kids wake up, make their bed, brush their teeth, and like clockwork, we'd have them apply sunscreen before stepping a foot out of the cabin. One day on our way out of the cabin, Ethan, an 8-year-old boy, just the cutest little kid, he always did some of the funniest stuff, he asked me on our way out, "Johnny, why aren't you applying any sunscreen?" Here's the part where I tell you I was one of maybe 3.5 or so black camp counselors out of the entire summer camp. I looked Ethan in the eye and I said, "Ethan, because I'm black." Guys, I'm not kidding when I said that sunburn was something I only knew as a gag in cartoons. Sunscreen is for white people. It was so easy for me to think that. Coming up in the South Chicagoland, I never seen it. But it turns out, my skin, your skin, and even the person that's sitting next to you, their skin, they can be worlds away from how they respond to the sun. Pick up your skin, this tip, the epidermis, all right? The epidermis is where all the fun takes place. Am I ashy? That's shea butter. We all have varying amounts and varying properties of melanin. It isn't our skin cells that determine our pigmentation. It's melanin that lodges itself on and between our outermost layer of skin. There are 2 types of melanin relevant here. Melanin relevant here. It's like I'm rapping, sorry. Eumelanin and pheomelanin. Eumelanin spans the range of brown to black melanin. Pheomelanin spans the range of yellow to red. You see, the Simpsons weren't too far off. The difference between African skin, Indian skin, or European skin has everything to do with the balance of these different types of melanin that we create. In theory, and no scientist would openly confirm this, but I'll say it, if it wasn't for the wonders and the spectrum of melanin, we'd all be bland. And I don't mean pale, because pale people have melanin as well. But here's what's fascinating. The color of our skin is not really the primary function of melanin. It's more of a byproduct. Let me explain. The sun is sending down 2 relevant rays, UVA and UVB. UVA is a special sun gun that pheomelanin is particularly sensitive to. Pheomelanin produces what we call free radicals when met with UVA radiation. Free radicals, you may have heard that before. Free radicals cause oxidation, which we know as the biological degradation of molecules that make you up, right? It's kind of like taking down a skyscraper by taking out 1 brick at a time. That's kind of how damage in the body works on a microscopic level from the inside out. UVB tells a different story. UVB is actually the ray of the sun that penetrates our skin to initiate vitamin D synthesis. No UVB, no vitamin D. UVB interacts with a form of cholesterol that is situated just in that top layer of skin, the epidermis. This cholesterol uses UVB to convert itself into vitamin D, do up to bam. You see, this is why them boys need to stop demonizing cholesterol. Without cholesterol, there is no vitamin D. UVB ain't all sunshine and rainbows though. It does have the stronger influence when it comes to developing cancer. You see what I did there? Sunshine and rainbows. You missed it. I did. It was a bad joke. Eumelanin is different than pheomelanin in a sense that it actually neutralizes the sun's damaging influence. Eumelanin is known as antioxidative. A person's pigmentation is a mix of pheomelanin and eumelanin. Everyone has both. It's the body's need to protect itself from the sun's rays that drives the production of dark, UV neutralizing protective skin colors. Dark skinned folks develop more protection from the sun's harmful properties, but are disadvantaged relative to lighter skinned people when it comes to absorbing vitamin D. It's a catch-22. The more eumelanin, the more protection from the sun's rays. But the more eumelanin, the less receptive of the sun's rays, dampening vitamin D creation. Okay, so take my granddad, like 7 granddads ago. Resident of Africa. Minimal sun ray intensity shifts throughout the year, right? Skin probably well adapted to that tropical seasonal shift. Granddad's capability to obtain optimal vitamin D, yet protect his skin cells from the sun's rays damage, was optimized by his geography and preserved by his DNA. And then granddaddy ended up on that boat. From the latitude of the sunny equator, retrieving plenty UVB, to northeastern US, a latitude that is generally low UVB. Fast forward and we welcome the well-documented problem of black people in the US being vitamin D deficient. In fact, a 15 to 20-fold higher prevalence of vitamin D deficiency. And you better stop. Every black person just opened up a second tab on Amazon to shop for vitamin D supplements. Can't you see I'm building up this video for a big reveal on why sunshine and sunlight is better? Can't you just give it a sec? You see, yes, we inherit the skin color of our parents, right? But not just for the sake of it. Our skin pigmentation is the result of long adaptation. Less melanin production was a response driven by parts of the world with lower UVB pressure. UVB pressure drives darker pigmentation. So if there's a lot less UVB pressure, we end up with lighter skin. And this explains why little Ethan needed sunscreen and I didn't, because our skin has been calibrated differently by the people that have come before us on totally different parts of the globe. What happens when you take the skin of someone whose ancestors stayed in one spot throughout the entirety of their life, skin synchronized with the changing seasons of sun, right? Calibrated to the conditions, balancing between skin protection and vitamin D synthesis, and you pick him up and you're moving. They die. No, they don't die. You get America. The US is historically the most migrated to country on the globe. We have this melting pot of nationalities discovering the sun outside of their ancestral context. I mean, you think your granddaddy 7 times over was popping a vitamin D supplement to make sure he was not deficient? The problems always existed, but were extremely hard to get. Sun damage, to the degree that white people get it here in the US, is a novel problem. Vitamin D deficiency, to the degree that black people get it here in the US, is a novel problem. Because only with their feet to carry them, our ancestors didn't move around much. And so everything changed with the advent of fast travel. With humans getting further faster, there was a new wave of skin conditioning, and our skin isn't as well acclimated with the sun anymore. We will never reacquire the skin of our old cousins in them, and that's fine. But now we need to address the problem of how do we get adequate vitamin D since we've advanced to the point of never needing to go outside. Like literally you have no reason to go outside. Get your groceries delivered and work from home. You can stay in the house for weeks. I mean, you'd probably be depressed, but you can stay in the house for weeks. Hey, Gen Z, this is how you check on your friends. You call them, you say, hey, have you gone outside today? These are unprecedented times. I wasn't around 50 years ago. Some of my audience was, but I assume that you couldn't really achieve a meaningful day without going outside for at least something. Hey, real quick before we get into the next chapter, you may be wondering, why is it that the sun, the most influential thing in the sky, essential to all life, is damaging to us to the degree of cancer? Why is it that the skin has to adapt to protect itself from the sun? Well, let's start with the simple principle that too much of anything is bad, and this is the case for sunlight exposure and cancer. Developing cancer is actually just a function of the light energy from the sun frenzying up your DNA, your little DNA basis. You frenzy up DNA, you get cancer. The body doesn't seem to want to protect us from the principle of too much. Too much sugar gives you diabetes, too much stress gives you a migraine, too much alcohol gives you a DUI, a totaled car, and a hangover in jail with your civil liberty stripped from you. Y'all stay in school. There's no special biological preventative mechanism that adapts to make the body more impervious to these issues of too much. The body instead rectifies too much the same way it handles just enough. So there must be something else. What really has our skin producing melanin to neutralize the sun's rays? Back in college, one of my most riveting professors, she taught nutrition, and you could really hear the passion in her voice when it came to the subject of babies and motherhood and caretaking and the importance of breast milk. This professor introduced me to the world of vitamin deficiency. In that class, I learned that babies run the risk of inadequate fetal growth and neurotubular defects when mommy doesn't get enough folate. Vitamins are so cool. They're like little assembly line workers that ensure the product of human comes out correctly. And just like assembly line workers, they are depending upon each other. Nothing rings more true than that which is necessary for folate. Folate is critical for DNA synthesis, right? DNA, the biological blueprint that determines what you is. Folate is what we call mechanistically dependent upon vitamin B12. You don't get nothing good with just one and not the other. You need both. Cat dog. Without folate or B12, you can't create DNA. If you can't create DNA, then you die. Actually, yes, essentially that is kind of how that works. Folate is in every cell, and those right there at the top of your skin. Folate is crucial, but also vulnerable, as the sun's rays are particularly damaging to folate and have the potential to completely destroy it. Okay, now that folate is worth protecting, and this is the running idea behind why our skin makes us darker, to protect us from setting our folate supply ablaze. Dark skin neutralizes the sun's rays the same way dark clothes makes us hot. It absorbs the sun's light energy and converts it into heat. In eumelanin, that darker melanin that we produce, this converted heat energy dissipates the damaging effect of the sun's light energy. As it isn't really the heat from the sun that causes any of these issues we're talking about today, but it's the sun's light energy. It's bright. We don't go outside like we used to. I say sitting in the comfort of my home. Observing the USDA's census data, about 1 in every 3 Americans lived on a farm in the 1920s. Makes sense, we weren't as industrially advanced, and shortly after there was a huge migration into the cities. So just 50 years ago, in 1975, 1 in every 24 people lived on a farm. Before I go and reveal how many people are living on the farm in today's time, you may be wondering why I'm even bringing up these stats in the first place. We can't undo all of our technological advancements, and everyone can't go live on a farm. I do get that, but agricultural advancement has actually been the greatest driver in the declining relationship between human and the sun. You go far back enough in cultures and you have nomadic people, communities that planned and operated their entire day based on where the food gonna be at. These ancient people had a tight relationship with the sun. You had to be outside because you had to eat. Eventually, cultures began storing foods, which became associated with more permanent settlements. Then farming and cultivating, and the more convenient our agriculture became, the less of a reason to be outside. Fast forward to today, less families on farms, even the backyard garden has become a rarity. America is a farming nation, but it's well known that the decline of people cultivating their own ground, right, sourcing their own food, has been falling steadily over time. The more agriculture advances, the more that human and sun separate, because food has always been the #1 reason to go outside. Today, about 1 in every 128, or 0.7 of Americans, are farmers. Staying inside depigments your skin, and your skin color matters a lot here in the US. And you know, obviously it don't matter if you're black or white, Michael Jackson. But what about white and white differences? Let me explain. If you're out here in the Midwest, or you're over by the more northeastern states of the US, then your opportunity for good sunshine runs about 6 to 8 months out the year. Couple that with the fact that we are increasingly indoors, Caucasians are developing especially sun-sensitive skins.
I am not leaving here until I have a tan like yours.
Binging the sun, this sudden and immediate exposure to the sun's rays, often without acclimating, is known as the vacation effect. Vacation effect. Tan skin has become a signifier for access to leisure time and the ability to afford vacations. A nice, healthy tan in the US is seen as a good thing, a privilege, if you will. Interestingly, in many cultures of old, tan skin had a different association. Check it. Shielding from the sun isn't a new practice. The parasol extends way back to 2450 BC. It appears the parasol was used to protect from the sun from the jump, but this protection was reserved for those of high status. Pale skin, undamaged by the sun, became a distinguisher. Darker skin was associated with laborious outdoor jobs. The tan one would get from these probably lower wage jobs actually positioned them lower on the social status ladder. These attitudes permeated culture so much to the point of those with more privilege went to actively shield themselves from the sun's rays in order to retain pale skin. Ancient cultures even had rudimentary sunblock made from minerals and plant paste. It's funny, modern cultures here in the US distinguish tan skin from non-tan skin with, ironically, the complete opposite set of associations. And I wouldn't know. I had to talk to a white guy for this script. A white guy helped me write this script. I'm not kidding. His name's Mike. Shout out, Mike. Tan skin is not what you think it is, though. Anthropologist Nina Jablonski, sorry if I butchered your name, writes extensively on melanin pigmentation and skin health. She writes, sudden strong UV exposure is really bad because a sunburn signals damage to the skin that is never completely repaired. A tan doesn't protect you from further sun damage, it's the sign of damage itself. There is no healthy tan. No amount of tanning can bring depigmented skin to the resiliency of pigmented skin or any of our older ancestors, right? That time is gone, right? For black and white people, I mean, all of our skin is so delicate, pampered, and soft. So we want to go outside, we want more sun, we want more vitamin D, we want to be acclimated, but it turns out getting vitamin D the natural way is way more complicated than we thought. So where do we go from here? Us humans have reshaped our environment to include so many unnatural practices. Society is so unnatural that we often see a return to natural as healthy. And I know I do, that's my biggest bias. In fact, the closer we can get something to its natural order, the more attractive it is to us health conscious folks. But health consciousness isn't enough anymore. For as often supplement markers use the word natural or nature, although the thing is synthetically made, health vigilance is now necessary. The natural order being the right order is a technological fallacy, meaning if I bring that into a debate talking about some is natural, therefore it's good, I get crushed. Let's go all the way there. Consider how far we've come. I mean, we cured rickets, we can fly across the world, we don't have to leave our porch to be fed, full, and satiated. A return to natural is actually wrong. Should the vitamin D supplement be the source of our vitamin D? I know some of you are like, Johnny, how can you ask such a thing? But I bet a weighty percent of us have gone to the doctor's office, been told to take vitamin D to get our levels right, and in that brief consultation, there was not one single mention of the sun. So you ask me, why is that? Vitamin D subs are not the same as drugs. Drugs have to go through randomized clinical trials. You can't really get them without a prescription. Your insurance pays for them. It's healthcare. You know how this goes. We go to the doc, we get the goods, and we dip. American healthcare, say what you want about it, but it's a robust system, well-oiled machine between patient, provider, pharmacy, drug company, and insurance. With all this set up, the path from disease diagnosis to drug treatment is seamless. You should be taking vitamin D, right? That is a common sentence that I think a lot of us have heard probably verbatim, more often used as a blanket statement without regard of what folks' vitamin D levels are even looking like. And I'll touch on this in a bit here, but physicians recommending vitamin D without regard of the sun, without mentioning it, is akin to muscle memory. Now, this isn't all physicians, but a weighty percentage of physicians are giving out tens of drugs a day. And when a patient comes in with some levels that can be corrected with a supplement, right? It's just so easy. It's like second nature to say, go get the supplement without mentioning the sun. One of the problems, though, is that everything that makes drugs so legitimized is completely lacking when it comes to supplements. You got the supplement makers, which are private LLCs. Ain't no science being done. The sup is backed by their word. No prescription needed, and insurance ain't paying for it. It's just you, your doctor, or whoever told you to go take it, and probably an Amazon shopping tab. But zoom in on you and your doctor. To most patients, when a doctor recommends vitamin D, it feels the same as any other drug prescription. Doctor's orders, but then you're released to the wild, wild west that is the supplement industry. And the supplement industry is quite literally unhinged, right? And if you can continually be convinced that the source of vitamin D comes from the vitamin D supplement, then they're gonna make a killing. And so the vitamin D supplement beats the sun. But I guess we do have to ask, is this a bad thing? So let's look at it. Natural versus unnatural. How should we be getting our vitamin D? We're gonna get a little philosophical with this one. We've been pretty philosophical this whole video. You can blame Michael. Everybody go below and say, thanks Michael, in the comments. And leave a like down there while you're there. I mean, we've gotten this far in the video. Let's run a quick experiment. Imagine that you learn you have a medical condition and you need to go take a drug to treat it. You have to choose between one of two options. Option 1, a synthetic drug created in a laboratory by scientists. Option 2, a natural drug taken from a common plant. What you choosing? I'll give you a sec. Most of us probably picked the natural drug. So this was an actual study done by real researchers. They took over 300 folks and split them into two groups. The first group was presented with the same scenario I just presented to you, and 122 out of 173 folks selected the natural drug over the synthetic. The second group was asked the same question, but before they could answer, were given a rational appeal that pointed out the naturalness bias and presented a discussion of how natural drugs can be bad and synthetic drugs can be good. And so 71 out of 164 people selected the natural drug. A lot of us have the natural is better bias, but not only just us laymen. Nature has been seen as separate and special in its own right by even the biggest chemists. This idea was a core tenet in chemistry for a long time. In fact, we probably wouldn't even have vitamin D subs if it wasn't for a famous chemist making a mistake. It's just so common. It always happens. Like some chemist making stuff by accident and then it's a thing. It's just starting to wonder if chemists do anything on purpose. Living organisms are fundamentally different than non-living things. The difference is that living things, plants, animals, humans, are governed by a vital force. Growth, right? Reproduction, metabolism, things that cannot take place with inanimate matter. This philosophical doctrine is known as vitalism. Vitalism implores the idea that a substance that comes from a living organism must first come from a living organism. Some kind of vital force must produce the substance. So vitamin D, in this case, can only be synthesized by things that synthesize vitamin D, like human skin. This was largely a foundational principle of chemistry for a long time, until a German chemist by the name of, oh gosh,
Friedrich Wöhler.
in 1828,
Friedrich Wöhler.
accidentally synthesized urea in a lab. No life force. He made a natural substance without a natural process. On accident. This accidental discovery provided evidence that chemistry is chemistry. The same rules and laws that applies for inanimate objects also apply for living things. So vitamin D from the sun or vitamin D from the pill bottle, do these chemistry rules apply? Are they actually the same? What's in this pill? We got vitamin D3. You may see cholecalciferol, the molecular name of the vitamin in your subs. How do we get cholecalciferol in this? This is Freddy. He's about to make your vitamin D3. We shear Freddy. We take his wool, which is surprisingly a little slimy. Well, not that slimy. Also not like jojoba oil either. It's waxy, closer to petroleum jelly. This wool grease right here has just what we need to make a supplement. We wash and wring out the wool to extract out the grease. And under a microscope, this grease has 7-dehydrocholesterol. Oh, does that name ring a bell? That, my friends, is the same form of cholesterol at the edge of your skin waiting to be hit by sunlight. That's why them boys need to stop demonizing cholesterol. The 7-dehydrocholesterol is isolated from the sheep wool using calculated magic, also known as chemistry. We then take the 7-dehydrocholesterol and expose it to UVB light, but not from the sun, silly goose, a photochemical reactor. We take the then converted molecule of pre-vitamin D3, nuke it a bit until it turns into vitamin D3. Add some gelatin and sugar alcohol, shape it into a pill, add some seed oil because why not? We put seed oil in everything, bottle it, ship it, and voila, your vitamin D3 supplement. Freddy was not harmed in the making of this supplement. How long does the sun's rays have to touch your skin for it to give you adequate vitamin D? These researchers took participants and put them in the sun for 30 minutes to test how much vitamin D their skin would synthesize. They found that in the spring and summer, with just 22% of skin showing, in as little as 10 minutes, the body can produce 1,000 IUs of vitamin D. That's one soft gel of Nature Made, your #1 pharmacist recommended vitamin D supplement. 1,000 IU is 1.6 times the amount of the recommended daily allowance. Given constant UVB pressure, this means with the t-shirt on, you can acquire all the vitamin D you need and more in just 6 minutes. Except I lied. The study didn't use real people at all. The researchers used models and computer-based simulations in order to come up with what they found. For white people, but not just any old white people, Central European white people with a light tan. Of course, we can't eclipse their findings with their methodology because it actually is an interesting study that speaks to the efficiency of the skin being able to synthesize vitamin D. But let's look at this one. This study had real humans in the sun for 30 minutes and with shorts and a short sleeve tee on. The participants synthesized about 10 nanomoles per liter. 10 nano who? In just 30 minutes, these participants gained the equivalence of about 2,000 IUs. That's 20 glasses of fortified milk or 1 megadose of your daily vitamin D supplement. Here's 2 things you may have missed about vitamin D though. Number 1, all vitamin D in the body is not the same. The vitamin D3, that's what we find in our supplements, is actually not the biologically active form of vitamin D. So it's not the thing that comes into the body and immediately just starts activating things and producing the good stuff that vitamin D produces. Vitamin D3 will only be converted to its active form when its active form is called for. We're talking about a highly regulated and precise system. The second thing you may have missed is that vitamin D can be stored for later because it's a fat-soluble vitamin. What does that mean? Well, the advantage of a vitamin being fat soluble is that it is able to be saved in the same place that we save, you guessed it, fat. Fat is saved for fuel, released when we need it, and vitamin D3 can be saved for its vitamin functions, released when we need it. We're talking about a tightly controlled, highly precise system of monitoring, storing, and releasing. Monitor vitamin D levels, release what is needed, store what is not. Because this is a continuous process, the body is always deciding right there on the spot, as soon as sunlight touches the skin, it's deciding what to do with that newly synthesized vitamin D3. And it's going to go in order of ranking importance. This is a process known as sequestration. I say all this to say, that study we just pulled up, this one, with 30 minutes in the sun yielding 2,000 IUs, yeah, that's a low ball. The researchers can only measure what's in the blood, not that of which is stored. So it's very likely that the participants synthesize even more vitamin D than what they found. And it's cool because the researchers made note of that impact of this sequestration we just talked about as well. But there's a problem with this study that I left out because, otherwise it's pretty good. It runs right on par with the Switzerland study, right? 1,000 UIs can be generated in about 15 minutes. That's really all fine, nice and dandy, but the participants were only white this time. I need vitamin D too. This pigmented skin is blocking the sun. Am I gonna die? Yes. Skin color is relevant to vitamin D synthesis. Well, I would hope so, researchers from Belgium. So these researchers took 30-some folk, one group white, the other group type 6 on the Fitzpatrick skin phototype scale, in other words, dark-skinned. They exposed both groups to artificial UVB light and found something interesting. The dark-skinned participants would have needed multiples more of UVB to elicit the same production of vitamin D. Now, this study isn't particularly strong, a small sample size, missing details. In fact, most of the studies that reflect this design are all pretty weak, so I don't feel fully confident quantifying how much more sunlight a black person would need in order to get the same levels of vitamin D. Some estimates say something about 5 to 6 times more time needs to be spent, so something like a black person would have to spend 60 minutes in the sun to elicit the same response a white person could get in 10 minutes of being in the sun. Obviously, this depends on skin color and where someone is situated on Earth, but the bottom line and the beautiful fact is that the sun is still incredibly efficient at translating vitamin D into the body. So the molecule is the same, D3 from the supplement, and D3 is synthesized from the sun. But there's something interesting about getting the D3 from the sun that I had no idea about until I started researching for this video.
So here's 10 reasons, minus 5, why to get vitamin D the cool kids way. Number 1, being outside actually regulates your appetite. UVB triggers a hormone called ghrelin in the skin. It is known to stimulate hunger and food-seeking behavior. So when the UVB hits the skin, there ends up being more ghrelin in the blood, and this stimulates all that food-wanting activity. And researchers are saying that they believe because the warm months, there tends to be more food availability, at least historically speaking, that ghrelin just prompts us to take advantage of it. Bet God didn't see it coming when we invented DoorDash. Being outside helps Being outside helps to regulate our sleep. We rise up when the sun rises and then we go to sleep when the sun goes down. Don't you go thinking for 1 second that your entire hormonal rhythm isn't based on a 24-hour cycle determined by the biggest light in the sky. 1, 2, 3. Being outside actually lowers your blood pressure. There's an effect that widens your blood vessels without increasing your heart rate. But it's actually not from the sun, it's from the hormone ghrelin. It's an effect from ghrelin. I just didn't think that this video would turn into a ghrelin appreciation video. Next reason to be outside is sunlight really does lower your blood pressure. I don't know, it's just so interesting. I'm sorry, I had to double down on this. It's actually a different mechanism this time. This study observed a population of over 300,000 folk dialysis patients who are routinely getting their blood pressure checked. What they found was that across the nation, those that get more sunlight, even by incident, are associated with lower blood pressure. They also found that black people had a slightly higher blood pressure around the board, which aligns with the great association that blacks in the US have higher rates of high blood pressure. I mean, in order for any of this blood pressure lowering effect to take place, the sun has to penetrate the skin. And the darker the skin, the less penetration power the sun's rays are able to have. So could it actually be the case that black skin's sun blocking ability is actually suppressing the sun's blood pressure lowering effects? The next thing is sunlight boosts your mood. And I almost don't even want to muddy this up with some kind of scientific mechanism, because sometimes it's okay to just acknowledge the fact that there's something about being under the sun that just feels good. It just feels right. In fact, I bet if you watch this entire video inside, you probably feel an urge to go outside now that you've seen me enjoy the sunlight, because there's something inside all of us that just wants to be under the sun. And of course, there's also a mountain of evidence. Here's an interesting piece that came out of China. Researchers took nearly 800 operating room nurses, who we know are historically dealing with stress. We see this rings true for the Chinese as well. The nurses are inside all day, no windows in operating rooms, subjected to a steady diet of artificial light. Researchers found that poor mental health was negatively associated with greater sunlight exposure hours during the day. In other words, for those nurses that were able to escape outside and get a little hit of sunshine, or those that were able to work outside, there was a dose-dependent boost in stress relief. We've troubled ourselves due to technological advancements and the great repositioning of humans all across the earth with fast travel. Our skin literally isn't as thick as our ancestors. And here in America, white people damage easily from the sun, and black people are vitamin D deficient. Of course, let's prioritize sunlight, but it does take a little bit of strategy now. The two main problems you can get from a supplement is overusing it, leading to toxicity, or just wasting money on it because you kind of failed to marketing and you don't really need it. All right, my camera just died and I didn't bring a backup battery. Vitamin D is the most harmlessly hustled item in the industry. And the problem isn't that we're using it as much as the problem is that we've deprioritized going outside to get real vitamin D. And somehow some of us were convinced that this is the source. We are living, breathing, connected beings in sync with nature. And the sun is nature's captain. Hopefully this arduously long video has inspired you to put the sun back in its place where it belongs in your life. And I hope you guys gained some insight and perspective out of this one. Don't forget to go down below and grab yourself some of that element for peak hydration. I've been Johnny Dixon. I'm gonna get about y'all one.